Welcome to the Dixie Belle YouTube channel. Oh, not a minute early now. I'm bang on time. I am bang on time. I was about 10 seconds early to press the button. I'm live on the Dixie Belle YouTube channel. I'm live here every Tuesday at this time. And I'm Connie. I am a Dixie Belle brand ambassador. And my business is called Faff Designs. So last week, sometimes it takes a minute for YouTube to tell people that I'm live. And then because at the minute I've got no one watching, but in a minute there'll probably be an influx of people because there's a bit of a delay for YouTube to tell people that I'm actually live. So yeah, people are starting to jump on now. So first of all, if you hear any background noise, I've had to slightly switch things around because I've got something going on over here, which is where I normally do my lives. I've got a couple of things in the works over here. Behind you, that way, is a big open door, and the other end of the village is kids playing in the school, and the noise is carrying this way. So if you hear children screaming in the background, it's the school. And my son is there, and I'm quite surprised I haven't heard him because he's usually the loudest. So that's just in case you hear any background noise. Also, I've got dogs, and that door is also open, and they might bark because that's what dogs do. So that's covered that. But like I say, I'm here live every Tuesday at 1 o'clock UK time, which I think is 8 a.m. EST. So it's super early for probably the majority of people that are going to be watching this, because I'm on the Dixie Belle YouTube channel, and Dixie Belle is obviously a paint brand based in America, and I'm not in America. I'm in the UK, as you might be able to tell from my accent. So for a lot of you, you've probably seen me before. You know that I'm a Hot Mess Express, and basically I used to do lives on Dixie Belle's YouTube channel every week. Hi Donna. I used to do lives on the Dixie Belle YouTube channel every week. Previous to that, I've done Instagram lives and Facebook lives for Dixie Belle on their social media platforms. I had a short break because we were having some building work done, and the building work was literally here on this wall right next door, so it was super loud, and for that reason I paused live videos for a while, and all the building work's finished now. So hopefully, apart from the kids in the background, the potential dogs barking if we get a parcel, there won't be any interruptions. Fingers crossed. Hi Tracy, good morning to you all. So probably won't be on this time as long as what I was on last week. I think last week's was almost an hour. This time I'm just going to be showing you some hints and tips on stenciling. So this little table behind is what we painted last week. I went over the very, very basics of prep. Your last piece in green was the bomb. Thank you. It's upstairs now, absolutely rammed full of quilts, bed linen, you name it. It's the vision came alive. I'm really pleased we managed to get it up the stairs, wiggle it round onto the landing, because our landing on the stairs, you sort of have to go round back on yourself. We've only got quite a small house, but we have got tall ceilings. So I'm really glad it fit up there, and it fits everything in, and everything's organised for now. Probably won't be for much longer. But yeah, that green, and I managed to turn that round in a weekend. So on Saturday morning, I went to my storage unit, which is a few miles in the other direction, picked it up, managed to fit it in the back of my Land Rover, which that was a mission in itself because it was big. It's taller than Andy. It's huge. So I shoved it. When I had a van, that's when I bought it. I used to have a van. It blew up twice. The engine blew up twice. So I initially bought that off eBay. I think it cost me like £11. I won it for an absolute steal. Went and picked it up in the van. No problem at all. Shoved it in storage it's probably been in storage for over 5 years. And I'm trying to whittle down all the stuff that I've got in storage. So I keep putting it off and putting it off, as you do when you paint stuff for yourself. It's always the same, isn't it? So anyway, we got it here. We got it home just before lunch. I stripped the wax off it in the afternoon and primed it and prepped it and did all the things. Then on Sunday, I painted it, cleaned the inside, waxed it, staged it, got it upstairs and filled it with junk. I think that's a pretty successful weekend. And I did loads of other stuff in between as well. So I had a glass of wine on Sunday night because I was quite chuffed with myself. Yes, Jackie, yes, it does look a lot like Linda's. You're not the first one to say that. So she does obviously really classy furniture. I don't usually. I'm more of a kind of quirky, crazy kind of person. But yeah, it is quite a classy piece, and it does look a lot like Linda's. You need to find a piece like that. It's gorgeous. It was an absolute, it was modern pine. So there was nothing nice about the pine wood, but it was excellent quality. The build quality was amazing. It obviously was completely solid. The drawers themselves were so heavy. The piece was heavy. The glass, obviously in the front was, you know, good quality glass. You forgot a name, Linda. That's my northern friend, Linda Lethem, but her business name is Annie Loveday. So if you want some like classic farmhousey, cottagey inspiration, go and look at Annie Loveday Furniture. So she's on Facebook, she's also on Instagram. Her furniture is beautiful. I've been friends with her for a long time, and she used to be a Dixie Belle content creator. She still works with Dixie Belle, but just not regularly anymore because she kind of slowed down a little bit on furniture painting. But she used to work with Dixie Belle, and I've known her for many years. I actually first saw her furniture in a magazine when I first started painting furniture, and I was like, I want to be like her. And then I made her my friend, like I'm a weird stalker. No, it didn't happen like that. She actually, this is a weird story, and I'm obviously not painting, I'm talking, but basically I went to a paint workshop at a local paint stockist when I first started painting it, painting furniture, and I wanted to learn all the things. So I was like, right, book me on these furniture painting course things, workshops. I need to go and learn more and more. So I did in a town, literally the next town over from me, and basically the lady who ran it was a paint stockist, used to stock Dixie Belle, isn't a paint stockist anymore. And this is before Dixie Belle was even in the UK, before I knew about all the different brands and all those things. And I just went because I wanted to know. Anyway, we got friendly, and it ended up I started painting furniture to put in her shop, started selling furniture from her shop, started helping her out with commissions. We started painting kitchens together. We've done loads and loads of stuff. We've been to paint workshops, we've been to trade workshops, we've done loads and loads of stuff together. So I was just sitting in her shop one day, and we were just kind of like brainstorming something, or probably chatting rubbish, which is more likely, over a cup of coffee. And the phone rings, right? So she answers the phone, and it's somebody wanting to make a phone order for paint, okay, for the paint that she stocked. And it was a lady talking in a northern accent. So obviously in the UK, it's like the US, you've got accents that vary around the UK. And I could hear this other person on the phone thinking, that sounds familiar, because I actually used to live in Leeds, which is north of here, a couple of hours north of here. That's where I went to uni. So I was like, oh, the accent sounds familiar. And my friend, who was the paint stockist, the owner of the shop, went, I think it's Linda Lethem. And I was like, what? And she was like, because we'd been looking at magazines and looking at her stuff and looking at her Facebook, and we were like, oh, I just love her staging, I love her stuff, like she's so good and blah blah blah. And then she was like, it's Annie Loveday Furniture. So her business name is Annie Loveday, but her name is Linda Lethem, is Linda. And people get confused between the two. People call her Annie, but her name is Linda. Her business name is Annie Loveday. So Sharina was on the phone, taking this phone call, and I was thinking, that's like meeting a celebrity. So we were a little bit starstruck. And then she put her on loudspeaker, and I was going, is that Linda? And she was like, all right, Connie, like in the accent that she talks. And basically, the stalking started from there. Since then, we have met up with each other on when we've been away with the kids. I've been to her house several times. She can't get rid of me now. She can't get rid of me now. And we pretty much talk every day. Every single day we talk. So that is the story of my friend. She inspires me. I inspire her, I like to think. Probably not true, but we help each other out loads. If I'm ever stuck with staging or the colour choice of something or just motivation in general, I will always speak to Linda because she's very similar to me and I just think she's mint. So that's my story of how I met Linda. And she'll be mortified if she knew that that last 10 minutes of the live was dedicated to talking about her. Her house must be amazing. Jackie, I am not kidding. Her house, her house is amazing. Her house is amazing. It's a really, really old cottage and it's gorgeous. It is absolutely stunning. It's magazine worthy. She wouldn't admit that, but it is. It's gorgeous. So yeah, Supervan, stalker, best friends forever. No, not really, but really. So yeah, she she's the person that does. I'm going to say it. She has inspired me and probably influenced me, even without me directly knowing. She has influenced me over the years. There's no two ways about it. The first thing I saw, I still remember it. It was a console table. It was staged in her kitchen. It was taken from a side shot. It was just painted black. The photography, the staging was just amazing. And I remember everything about the picture. And it was in a magazine. And I saw it and I was like, that's what I want to do. And that's how I started out. Obviously, over the years, I've probably developed a little bit more of my own kind of style. But her influence is definitely there, without a shadow of a doubt. And her photography, it literally makes me sick how good she is. She takes it all on her phone. She's very naturally talented in taking pictures. I'm not. I had to work on that for a long, long time. I'm not that great at staging. It's taken a lot of practice. So yeah, her staging looks natural, doesn't it? It looks like it is part of a home, which is really hard to pull off, and she just does it naturally. Anyway, she's gonna love it if she watches. She ain't gonna watch this. She won't watch this. She might. I'll send it her and tell her she's got to. Anyway, stenciling. Let's get back to the actual thing that you've tuned in for. Stenciling. So I'm literally all I'm going to do is show you a little bit of stenciling on the front of this drawer. Jackie, my staging's on point. Thank you. That's very kind. But honestly, I wish it was better. If there was one thing that I wish I could improve on, would be photography and a little bit of staging. It takes me a while to get there. Linda can just put something together. She can when she works, the thing that keeps her motivated is the staging. That's how she's planning as she's painting, she's planning how it's going to look. Whereas I finish a piece and then go, right. And then sometimes it takes me hours to stage a piece. Sometimes it takes me not that long at all. I'm very lucky because I've got natural light, and that is a big thing when you are staging furniture. But yeah, if you could see how, we've all got to start somewhere, but if you saw my early staging work, no, it's not that good. It's actually diabolical. So anyway, get back to stenciling. So I am going to use, predictably, the bone inlay stencil. So I just call it the bone inlay stencil, and people are like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? So I ordered a couple of these because when I show it in the state that it is, people are quite shocked, actually. And the state that it is chopped up into a million different pieces. Here, look. So there's loads and loads of different bits, all chopped up, because that's how I use it. But this is how it comes. So I've ordered this. I'm going to try and keep this in one one sheet, although I know I'll end up cutting it up. But anyway, it comes in one big sheet like this. And if you haven't seen any examples of what you can do with this stencil, you need to go onto my YouTube or onto any of my social media platforms, because I've used this quite a few times. I have been asking Dixie Belle for a bone inlay style stencil years, possibly, and they finally did one. So you're welcome. No, I'm kidding. But we have been asking. Me and a couple of the other brand ambassadors have been asking. So yeah, personally, I do think this is designed to be cut up. I think you would be making your life more difficult for yourself if you didn't cut it up. It might be okay if you were just planning on using like one tiny little bit for a border, but if you did want to use all of the different aspects, then I would personally just chop this up. So we've got a bit of light reflecting off it, but you get the kind of gist. So there's border pieces here. Then there's some like filler inner pieces. There's some corner pieces. And then at the very, very bottom, there's another section of like a straight border. And basically, the idea with this stencil is that you wouldn't just, like a normal stencil, you would literally just put it flat on your piece and stencil. You wouldn't with this. You make your own design, and whatever piece of furniture you have, I am pretty confident, unless it's really teeny tiny because the scale wouldn't work. But if you've got a piece of furniture, I'm confident that you would be able to make this fit in some way. I've done a few different pieces. I've done a mirror. I've done a yellow cabinet that I've actually kept. I've kept the mirror as well. I have done... What else have I done? Oh, I've done a blue desk for a commission that was cobalt blue. Is that it? I feel like I've used it more, but maybe I haven't. Anyway... And all of them I've cut up, and all of them I have managed, obviously they're all different styles, all different shapes, all of them I have managed to make this fit. A lot of people go as well, on the video of my yellow cabinet, it's still, I posted it a few weeks ago, and it's still going. The comments are like, you've done too much stenciling. I'm like, that's the point. The point is, it's supposed to look like a bone inlay, and bone inlay is obviously heavily patterned. So you are supposed to fill, you're not supposed to, but bone inlay style is very, very heavily patterned. And it also is very, very expensive. But you can kind of create a very similar look with this stencil. And I have even gone a little bit further, and I have chopped up. So this part here is that little bit there somehow. It's that like corner here. I've even gone a little bit further. So this was for the desk that I did, the blue desk. It had a very awkward shape. It's very easy to make it to make this stencil fit into panels, drawers, square kind of, because you just use this and then fill it in with the middle bit. My desk had like a corner piece that was kind of like that shape, and it was awkward, so that's why mine's chopped up even smaller. The yellow piece did appear in a magazine. Yes, it did. It did. It was in Reclaim magazine, which is a magazine in the UK, so quite proud about that. So that is what it looks like in its entirety without snipping it up. And these are obviously all the separate elements. Now, a little tip, and I'm going to take this tip for the next time I chop one of these up, is use a ruler or a guillotine to make sure you'll get straight edges. Because what happens is if you're trying to line that up with, I don't know, maybe say the top of a drawer, or if you're putting it in a panel, and you're using this as your guide and you haven't cut it straight, it's going to be wonky. And that's what I did. I just went at this with a pair of scissors. I can't cut a straight line if my life depended on it. As you can see, it's not straight. So that's what I would say. Use a guillotine or like a ruler and a craft knife. So that's what I didn't do. So that's the piece that I'm going to use on this drawer. Right, stenciling. Now, there's always more than one way of doing something. If you've got a way that works for you, carry on doing that. There's no reason to change, or there's no reason to fix a broken record. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. Well, don't fix it if it ain't broken. Whatever, you know what I mean. I'm just going to show you how I do it. And like I say, there's always more than one way to do something. So some people use a brush, some people use a sponge, some people tape their designs on. There's just loads of different ways to stencil. Like there are loads of different ways to decoupage. There's always more than one way to do something, especially in the upcycling world. More than one ways to do something. So just because you're doing something one way and it works for you, don't feel like you've got to change it because somebody else is doing it a different way. And also, don't let anybody tell you you're doing things the wrong way either. Like in one of my latest videos, I got told that I should be restoring and not painting. Well, that's not my job, so I'm going to continue painting. Anyway, this is the little piece that I'm going to put on the front of this drawer. So this piece is obviously quite small. I'm going to be keeping this. It's going to be for my outside area. So it's quite a small piece, and I do plan on putting a little, possibly, I think a little white handle. Oh no, that's way too big. Way too big. Let me see if I've got a smaller one. I might have to paint a pine. Oh, I've got a smaller one. I might have to paint, I was going to say I might have to paint a pine one white, but that fits. The other one was too big. So I think I'm going to be doing that on there. And then I'm going to be using the bone inlay stencil just to create a bit of a pattern on here. So what do I use for stenciling? I use a brush, and depending on the size of the stencil that I'm using, I always feel sorry who do these videos and can't lay it flat when they're doing stencils. Yeah, I know. It's part of the job. We do take one for the team. That's why I'm only doing this tiny little front of the drawer for you. I'm going to show you how I do it and a few little tips that I've picked up along the way. But I'm only going to be stenciling this, and then the rest of it I'll probably be doing like face down, so I can. What Jackie means is battling with a stencil that is gravity's trying to pull it away is harder than if you were to stencil that like that. So I always, when I'm stenciling, if I can move the camera, I will take the drawer out and put it down so that I can stencil downwards, so that it is just so much easier, because otherwise you're trying to fight with gravity and this is like flopping all over the place. It's just a nightmare. Some pieces, if it was really huge and you can't tip it over, you do have to do it that way, and quite often I'll roller it then if I'm doing like a large side panel. But for something like this, for demonstration purposes, I am going to be using tape. Now, I don't use masking tape a lot because it annoys me, actually. It really annoys me. But I'll just use a little bit for the purpose of this. So I'm just going to roughly get that kind of there. I'm going to leave a little gap. I'm not going to do this side yet, because obviously I'm going to have the handle. So if I did that and then stencil the whole thing, the handle would sit over the design. That's not a problem if that happens, but I know I've got enough space to go a little bit to the right with this. You can see, this is why you should always clean your stencils as well, because I've used this, flipped it over and used it both sides, and when I've just moved it on the piece then I've just left a little bit of the previous dried on chalk paint on here. So clean your stencils, don't do what I do and leave it. So I'm just going to make sure that's kind of cleared. I think it might just clip when I put the handle on, that tiny little bit there, but like I say, I don't mind. And then obviously make sure that it's not on the, it's just going to fit on that little drawer, I think. think it'll just fit. This is when you need, like an octopus, you need 8 hands. One to hold it, one to stick it down. Okay, so a little bit of painter's tape is just going to hold it for you. Then, I keep getting asked this all the time. There's a lady that asked this last week. Paint residue from the other side will work if you do some distressing. Yeah, it will. There was the lady that asked last week about stencil brushes. Now, I started out probably on my furniture painting journey. Once I'd mastered the basics of doing a little bit of distressing and, you know, just painting in general, the first things I did was learn decoupage and stenciling, and I've always loved doing those two things. So over the years I have built up quite a big collection of stencil brushes, and I'll be honest, I've never really been impressed with any of them. I've gone from having kind of really cheap and cheerful ones from Amazon, all the way up to quite high-end ones from various different manufacturers. And I'll be honest, none of them are that great. None of them are brilliant. So I've kind of done my own thing. This is what I use for this small style stencil. So this is a Dixie Belle brush. And I've got the other one here to show you. So Dixie Belle do lots of different synthetic brushes. This one is a round large, and this one is I think this is classed as the small. Obviously, there's a big difference in the size. One of them is bigger, one of them is smaller. I use both of these. If I was stenciling a slightly larger pattern, I'd probably get away with that. Because this is a smaller element of that stencil, I'm going to be using the smallest round brush. But again, if I was using a different style of stencil, and I can't grab one now because they're all in a pile over there, but if I was using a stencil and I wanted to cover like a whole panel or the top of a piece or a big door, then I do use these. This is the best dang brush. So what I find works best with stencils is a flat tip. If you use one that is tapered, or say for example something like this, I just think that it doesn't give you the precision and the correct surface area that this does. Like I said, there is no right or wrong. It's just from personal experience. I find something like this or this with a flat edge works. I know this has got a flat edge, but obviously it's a flat brush. So the surface area that touches the surface is smaller than what this is. And the idea is you need as little paint on your bristles as possible. So personally, I've seen other people using these. Personally, not for me. These are the ones that I use. I do use that occasionally, but as you can see, it is slightly curved. It's not entirely flat. But again, it depends what stencil I'm using. Yeah, the Morocco stencil. So the Morocco stencil is the same size as this. It's a big old stencil, but it's one continuous pattern. And I've used that on the tops of pieces, on the sides of pieces, on the fronts of pieces. Same with the retro lattice. Big old stencil, and I can do it in minutes using this because it's so big. But for precision, I'm going to be using the small one. The small round. So they're the two sizes of smalls. They're the two sizes of rounds that Dixie Belle sell. The other ones are oval in shape. So don't look at this because obviously I've stored it incorrectly and the bristles are sticking out. So you can see the size difference quite a lot. There's nothing to say that you can't stencil with one of these. It's just that obviously I'm doing a really delicate, tiny stencil. So, you got your brush. But the problem is, the Dixie Belle bristles on their brushes quite long. And what happens is when you put that on the surface, they kind of splay out and bend a little bit. And you want precision when you're stenciling. Normally, what you'll find with 9 out of 10 stencil brushes is they're made out of natural bristles. So this is a natural bristle brush. This is a natural bristle brush. And I think that's why a lot of people use this. But this is a natural bristle, this is a natural bristle. And natural bristle brushes have they absorb water because the bristles are porous. Synthetic bristles are not porous. I've got something in my eye now. So you do need to be a little bit more careful when you're using synthetic brushes to make sure that you haven't loaded your brush up too much with paint, because none of the water out of the paint will be sucked up by the bristles of this, where it will be with a natural bristle brush. And that's usually why natural bristle brushes are used for stencil brushes, as well as the bristles being more stiff. So these bristles are a little bit floppy. That's why these brushes are so good at getting you a smooth finish, because they're super smooth and they don't force on the surface down too much. They give you a really soft finish. So to combat that, you need a little bit more tape. Hope this is all making sense to everybody. So a little bit masking tape, you don't need a lot. And then all you do is leave about that much, whatever that is, don't know, centimetre or two. And that's not, the tape's not sticking because I folded it on top of one another. You've never tried a round flat brush before, but I'm intrigued. Does this shape have a specific name? So these brushes are from Dixie Belle Paint. This is a small round brush. If you go on the Dixie Belle website, it will tell you the names of all the brushes on there. These are the two that I use when I'm stenciling with small areas like the one behind. This is the smallest one they do, and you can see that's done to the bristles. Wrapping a little bit of tape round has compacted the bristles. It stops them splaying out, and it gives you way more precision. So as opposed to this, where the bristles are going to splay out and kind of do this as it touches the surface, that keeps them compact. And it lets you have more precision, and then you get crisper lines when you're stenciling. And this is, obviously I work with Dixie Belle, but this is the best stencil brush that I found. I've got a drawer full of stencil brushes over there. All vary from natural bristle to synthetic, and I've spent a fortune on some of them, and none of them give me as much precision and accuracy and control than what this does. Just putting a little bit of tape around there. With this one, where did I put that other one? With this brush, if you're doing a massive area, obviously the two are very different in size, but with this brush, if you're doing a massive area, you generally don't tend to need to wrap tape around it, because although the bristles are very similar in length, these are natural bristles, so they are much stiffer, and that's why natural bristles are better for giving you texture and different effects, because the bristles are stiff, as opposed to the softer bristles of a synthetic brush are meant for kind of really soft painting, which gives you a smoother finish. So I don't usually use tape with this. I only use tape with the synthetic brushes. I hope that makes sense. But Dixie Belle, I just threw that on the floor. And again, we'll just leave it on the floor. Dixie Belle brushes are by far the best brushes that I've ever used. They are fabulous. And some of these are the first ones that Dixie Belle sent me when I was first a content creator for Dixie Belle. And we are going back now, it's got to be 5 years. So as long as you look after them and don't do what I've just posted on my Instagram stories and leave them in a bucket of water for a week, then they will last a long time. Peter's not later in the day, so we could have a tot every time we say natural bristle brush. Yeah, I'm not on the Dixie Belle YouTube channel. That'd be naughty, wouldn't it? But we could do a live on my own channel and do that. I am a lightweight though, by the way. So back to stenciling. The other thing you're going to need with stenciling is definitely some either rag or paper towel. This is shop cloth. This is what I get from Amazon, buy it in bulk, because it's really, really absorbent, but it doesn't shed and it doesn't leave any bits on your furniture, and it's quite tough. So it's like kitchen roll, but super strong. So a piece of that. You're also going to need some paint, obviously. And the colour that I'm going to use today is white. So this is cotton. I usually use fluff, but I think I've run out. Cotton is the purest white. Fluff has got tiny, tiny hint of grey. So it's a little bit darker. If you're stenciling over the top of black, you probably wouldn't even notice. But if you were to paint cotton and fluff next to each other, fluff it's an off-white. Cotton is the purest white. So this is Dixie Belle's chalk mineral paint, a brand new tub. And I'm going to actually decant some onto here, because you only need a tiny, tiny amount of paint when you're stenciling. Tiny, tiny amount. And that's too much. And basically, what you need to do is put some on your brush. I just normally dab it in so that it's covered. Take as much off on the side of the paper plate as you can. And then take even more off onto your rag. Again, the reason I use fluff is because it's an off-white, it covers really well. Cotton, with it being the purest white, doesn't have quite as good coverage because it's pure white, but I don't know where my fluff is, so we're going to use cotton and it's fine. So we might have to do a couple of coats. And then the other thing you want to make sure when you're stenciling is that stencil is flat. So at the minute, the tape is holding it in position, but it's not holding it completely flat to the piece. If you've got a gap, you'll just end up with lines and bleed through and your paint going underneath and everything. So you really do need to use both hands when you're stenciling. If you are stenciling an area that is bigger than your stencil, obviously you can run tape around the whole thing if you wanted to, and that is going to keep it flat. The other thing you can do if you've got a really awkward surface that might be curved, or you're trying to go around a corner or something like that, is you can use a low tack spray adhesive. And I've used them before. Sometimes they work okay, sometimes they don't, but they don't leave any residue on your furniture. That's the important thing. They're very low tack, which means they'll stick once, and then once you take that thing off, they won't stick again. And they do work. They have helped me in the past. I don't use them on a regular basis, but I have used them in the past. So in that time that I've been talking, I've probably dried my paint up on my brush. So loaded it up, taken it off, and you want your brush to be pretty dry, so there's not a lot of paint on there at all. And then there's a couple of different ways you can apply it. You can stipple it on like this, which is probably what I do 9 times out of 10. Or you can swirl it on like this. There's no right or wrong way. It's just a slightly different way of applying it. And what you want to do is just build it up really, really slowly. And make sure there's no gap between the stencil and the piece of furniture that you're stenciling. That's why swirling it can help, because obviously it's keeping constant pressure on the stencil, whereas tapping it, you're coming off the stencil every time, and if it's not entirely flush, you can find out the odd rogue bristle might slip under and you'll get that bleed through. And bleed through is just basically something that happens when paint leaches under the surface of a stencil and you get slightly imperfect lines. It happens to everyone. Everyone says, I can't do stenciling and my lines are never crisp. Well, that still happens to me sometimes when I'm rushing and I've put too much paint on. Most of the time, it's when you have too much paint on your bristles or your stencil isn't entirely flat to the surface. And you just keep doing that. So don't be tempted to load your brush up to do more. Just work in really, really small areas. And the swirling sometimes helps if you do have really delicate detail. But on the other hand, if you aren't holding your stencil securely with your left hand or your right hand, depending on whether you're left-handed or right-handed, if you're not careful, obviously that can move it around. So it is just a case of finding out what works for you best. Like I say, I alternate between stippling it on and swirling it on. It just depends. And a lot of people say, what happens if I need to apply 2 coats for full coverage of a stencil? Usually coverage is pretty good with most Dixie Belle colours. There might be the odd one. Say, for example, if you were trying to use Florida Orange over black, you probably need more than 1 coat because Florida Orange is a very pure colour and it lacks white pigment, which means it takes normally an extra coat. So normally 2 coats is all you'll need with Dixie Belle colours. Florida Orange, and there's a couple of others that have a lack of white pigment, which makes them very vibrant. Therefore, they need a coat extra. So if I was trying to put Florida Orange over top of Caviar, which is the black, some people lift it, let it dry, and then place it down again. But obviously you've got to then try and line that stencil up exactly. Because if it is out by the tiniest amount, it will show. So what I would do in this situation is get a hairdryer or a heat gun, give it a real quick blast and keep the stencil on the surface in situ and then do your second coat. That's what I would personally do. But some people do take the stencil off and go again, reapply it again. I'm just not that good. So the coverage is pretty good. The good thing about stenciling as well is it's not like a real thick coat of paint that's going to take a couple of hours to dry. That's touch dry now. Because I've applied it so thinly, it's touch dry. So if I'm really careful, I can go over it again with a little bit more paint just to make sure I've got complete coverage over all of the areas. Like that. And now, fingers crossed, we're not going to get any bleed through. And we're going to get a quite precise line. And when you are taking your stencil off, just in case you've got any paint on the reverse of here, which does happen, I've got some on my finger, so it's obviously going to go through a little bit. Pull it away, directly away. Don't slide it, because if you're sliding it through the wet paint, you're going to smudge the pattern, or the paint that's on the back of the stencil will obviously drag on the surface and you're going to get a bit of a smudge. So there we go. Ta-da! No bleed through, quite crisp, decent coverage. I'm pretty pleased with that. And then I'm just going to repeat the same on this side. Again, just be careful if you are overlaying a stencil where you've just stenciled. It might be worth just blasting that really quick with a hairdryer so that it's touch dry and you're not going to risk rubbing over the same area. So, lucky for me, I've got a hairdryer right here. And the other thing as well is what I just said about the back of the stencil potentially having paint on it. I've done this so many times. I've lifted it, I've blasted that, I've gone to put the other side back down, forgot that there might be a tiny bit of paint on the back, and it's gone over where I've just stenciled. So normally what I do is just this, and I just rub it. I mean, you could do it with a rag if you wanted to. I just rub it on my t-shirt, on my jeans. Only swirl if the bristles are taped though. Yeah, definitely. You do need the I do swirl with these brushes, but the bristles are compact and stiff on these. Don't try and swirl if you haven't used tape and you're using a brush that's quite floppy and soft like that, because it'll just go like a crazy mess. It'll just be out of control. It'll be out of control. So we're going to do exactly the same. I probably could have gone over slightly a little bit more to the side of the drawer. If that happens, by the way, if you release your stencil and you've made a mess or you've got the placement wrong, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Little bit of sandpaper, or if it's still wet, just get a rag, a little damp rag, and rub it. That way you're not going to get like a slight outline if you paint over it. Paint over it in black, go again. That's it. The amount of times I had to redo that desk, I think on one of the panels that was a weird shape, I had 3 attempts. 3 attempts on getting that right, because I'm not one of these people that measure out everything before they start. I kind of go for it and wing it and hope for the best. And if it doesn't work, we'll go again. So it's not a disaster. It honestly, if you just sand it down so that there's no kind of raised, because I just painted black over the top of that, in certain lights, the tiniest bit of paint obviously will make a difference, and it might just catch the light, so it'll look like a very, 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 very subtle raised stencil. So I would always advise giving it a quick sand or rubbing it with a rag if it's still a bit wet, and then paint it black again or whatever your background colour is, and just go again. Just go again. Now I've got to make sure that I've got the gaps very, very similar to here. I mean, if it isn't, it is, do you know what I mean? It's not the end of the world, because it's just a tiny little wine table that I'm keeping outside. So I'm just going to try and line it up-ish. Like I say, not too fussed if it's not perfect. This is painter's tape, by the way, so it doesn't really do very well if you lift it and then try and stick it down again. So I'm just going to add a little bit of extra tape just there, just to kind of hold it. Also, if you are worried that you are going to go over, if you've got a very piece of pattern that you're trying to avoid and it's close to the pattern that you're stenciling, just use a bit of tape and block it off. That's why this stencil is so good, because you can literally just use half of it or a section of it and just take the other bit off. This big old piece here, I had at one point, I think 3 pieces of tape, because I just needed a tiny little bit to use. So when I say it's versatile, it really, really is versatile. Or you could do this. That is that piece of stencil, but I've just cut it in half so that you've got 2 separate pieces as opposed to 1. You seal first and use a baby wipe. That's very clever, but there's no way I'm sealing this twice. Absolutely not. Not on your Nelly. So there are you could do that if you wanted to seal your piece, then stencil, then seal again. You absolutely can. I don't do that. There's 2 reasons. Number 1, I hate top coating, and I don't want to top coat something twice. Number 2, if you are stenciling over something that's already got a top coat, so if you top coated the chalk mineral paint, or if you're using a stencil with silk mineral paint, which has a built-in top coat, what you'll find is, because it's got a slightly shinier surface, is that it's not quite as absorbent as this, which is chalk mineral paint, or terra in that case. So terra and chalk are chalky to feel and porous. So I find that when I'm stenciling straight over the top of chalk and terra, I get a crisper line. It's less likely to bleed through because the chalk paint underneath is obviously sucking onto the paint that I'm stenciling with. If I am stenciling over the top of silk or something that I've already top coated, there is nothing sucking that paint in. It's a shiny surface, so you have to use even less paint because it's more likely that the paint will seep underneath the stencil, you get bleed through. So there's pros and cons to doing it that way. That's personally why I don't, but the main one is because I don't want to top coat something twice. I don't even think that's straight, to be honest. Is it? Is it going up a bit at this end? I can't tell. It'll be all right. You get the idea. You get the idea. Once I've had a couple of wines outside anyway, it's not going to be noticeable, is it? So, again, same thing again. Load your brush up, take it off on your rag, and go for it. You watch this be like completely cockeyed and wonky and not straight. That's the other beauty of putting it down and doing it face down, is that you can level it up much better than what I can standing here at an angle. I can already see that it's going off the top of the drawer there. So you can level stuff up a lot better when you're standing square to it. I'm standing at an angle, so if I was standing straight, I'd be blocking the camera, so it wouldn't be a very good live, would it? I've got tape over that bit there as well. That won't work. That's my excuse anyway. That's my excuse as to why this is going to be wonky. It's because I'm doing it live. I've gone over there as well. Come on. There we go. Moment of truth. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I mean, the whole point of this is it is hand painted, isn't it? It's hand painted. It's meant to look a bit boho, a little bit quirky, and then the handle in the centre. You kind of get the idea with that, where I'm going with that. So that's what all I'm going to do with you today. I'm not going to do the whole table, don't worry, because we would literally be here all afternoon. The other thing I just want to quickly say is that you can... I just trod on my best down brush then and nearly went straight on my backside. The other thing you can do is, if you have a tiny imperfection, you've got one tiny bit of bleed through and you don't want to sand it down, repaint it and do it all again, you can just touch it up. So the smaller the brush, the better, especially when you're working with a tiny little design like this. So what you need is your background colour, which in my case is black. You need an artist brush. You could use, I find the flat ones easier to use. So this is, I mean, it's not, I haven't looked after it, but it is a flat one. Or in the pack, there's a few different ones. So the chisel tip, there's a pointy one, I don't know what the name of that is. There's that one that I'm using, and then there's a larger one. Personally, I find that one and that one perfect for touching up stencils if you've gone over the line. Or if there's one tiny little bit, and like I say, you don't want to do the whole thing, you need your background colour, which is the black, and you just need to basically really carefully go over it, and you can just erase anything that's a problem. I did it a lot on my blue desk actually, because it was just such an awkward shape that I did have to go over the lines in some areas. So that is how you would touch it up. Tiny little brush, and just really carefully use your background colour that works in as an eraser. You wonder why you're choosing a white knob, but it's perfect with the stencil. Yes. So the idea is with like bone inlay is that you put more on it. Obviously, I've got a whole top panel here, and I've got a shelf panel here that I'm going to put more stenciling on. But like I say, I'm not going to do it with you this afternoon because I've got to pick kids up from school and you'd all be bored to tears. And probably my voice would go as well, because I go all day without speaking to people, and then when I have to do my live and I'm talking continuously for what should have been half an hour but is now coming up to an hour, my voice goes a bit weird. So yeah, the white knob, oh, that's another brush gone on the floor. White knob on there, you kind of get the idea. I think it'll look cute outside anyway. And then somebody asked last week what I'd be sealing this with, and I still don't know, actually. I still don't know. I am live now. Yes, I'm live right now from the UK. It's 1:54, but I will be going shortly. So I will be sealing this because although it's going to be outside, it is undercover. It's like an outdoor kind of seating area with a roof. So I'm going to be sealing this. I just don't know what with at the moment, but will I leave it until next week, or shall I do a different live next week? I feel like sealing is a bit boring. Well, it is for me anyway. There's a couple of different things that are compatible with being outdoors, though, just to answer the question from Dixie Belle. So you can use Easy Peasy Spray Wax, which isn't a product that I use a lot of, but it is suitable for outside. You can use Howdy Do Hemp Oil, which is brilliant for outdoor projects. But the only thing is, I've got white on here, and oil-based products over pale colours tend to turn them a little bit yellowy. So I might avoid Howdy Do Hemp Oil on this. The other product that's really good is Gator Hide, which is Dixie Belle's most durable top coat. And they've also got another top coat called Terra Tough. Now, Terra Tough was developed specially for the Terra Clay Paint line because that needs a dedicated top coat. It's a different kind of paint altogether to what everyone's used to. So it's a little bit strange. So it needs a proper, a different top coat, and it had to be formulated to use especially for Terra. However, I've been using Terra Tough, the top coat, on other projects. I've been using it on chalk mineral paint, I've been using it over stain, and I've been using it over silk, and it is very quickly becoming my favourite top coat, and I find it easier to work with than Gator Hide. I'm not a top coat person. My expertise is not on top coats whatsoever. I usually use wax because my pieces are normally quite decorative, so I'm okay with using wax. But Terra Tough, I've had no problems with it. I've had no problems with it streaking or dragging or applying. I've used a roller with it, I've used a brush with it, and I've used a foam and dandy brush with it as well. And I've had really, really good results. It's comparable to Gator Hide, but the formula's slightly different. It's not as shiny, and I don't find it quite as sticky. So if you've had problems with Gator Hide, because not everything suits everybody, not every single product is going to be compatible with everybody. If you've had problems applying a specific top coat, maybe give Terra Tough a go, because if I can use it, probably you can as well. Like I say, I'm not a top coat person, and that's absolutely fine. Everybody has different areas that they are better at, you know, that they can lead into. I personally prefer using waxes. That's just my thing and always has been. However, there are times where I need a durable top coat. I'm doing a coffee table commission over here. That's not going to be waxed. That is going to be Terra Toughed, because it's going to be a more durable top coat for my customer. What's the difference? Thicker? No, it's not thicker. It's almost identical, but the formula is different because Gator Hide doesn't go over Terra the same. That's how I know it's different. It is, and Dixie Belle told me it's different. It is different. It's a different product. Don't ask me what the technical differences are. I don't actually know, but they are different. I just find Terra Tough a really, really good top coat. But this coffee table that I am painting for my customer, which is over here, which isn't painted yet because I've had to do a load of work to the drawers. All the drawers were stuck completely in. So it's all had to be sanded. I've had to chisel the drawer runners. It's been a bit of a nightmare. Not this piece, by the way. This is just sold. This is the piece that I'm talking about. I'll be painting that for my YouTube channel, so I'll be showing you Terra Tough on there. I'll probably go into it in a little bit more detail than what I have before, because I feel like I know the product a little bit more now, so I can talk about it a little bit more, whereas before I was a bit like, I don't really know what I'm doing. So yeah, I'll be doing Terra Tough on the coffee table. So that'll hopefully be on my YouTube channel over the next couple of weeks once I've actually started and finished the coffee table for my customer. And yeah, hopefully that might help with you, any queries that you might have about Terra Tough, because it is very, very similar to Gate Hide, very similar. If you like Gate Hide and you've got good results with Gate Hide, you probably no point buying Terra Tough. But if you've ever struggled with Gate Hide or its application or anything, I would encourage you to try Terra Tough. It's actually a really good top coat. And it's obviously not just compatible with Terra. You can use it over anything. I've used it over No Paint Gel Stain. I've used it over Voodoo Gel Stain, Chalk Mineral Paint, Terra Paint, and Silk. And it's been really good on all of them. So I'm going to leave it because it has been exactly an hour. I said I was going to stay less on. I said I was going to be less. No, I said it was going to be a shorter live today, but it hasn't. It's been exactly the same. It's been an hour, and all we've done is that tiny little bit, and basically I've just talked nonsense at you. So thanks for sticking with me, those that have been here from the start. Thank you. Would be interesting to know the science of Terra Tough, because it's obviously designed not to spread or streak the Terra paint, whereas Gator Hide simply... Gator Hide actually is okay over Terra clay paint, but it saturates the colours a little bit too much, whereas Terra Tough doesn't. So Gator Hide doesn't reactivate Terra clay paint. It just makes the colours slightly too saturated. So what do you like for sticky drawers? No one wants sticky drawers, Don. I've told you this before. No, none of us want sticky drawers. Sticky drawers, it's got to be Big Mama's Butter, hasn't it? It's got to be. They've just released a new scent of Big Mama's Butter. It's called Ginger Zen. It's really nice. They did torment me that they were going to release one called Pumpkin Spice, because there's a bit of a running joke between me and the girls at Dixie Belle, that says that... Basically, I put a very strong claim out a few years ago that said pumpkin spice is rancid. Anything pumpkin spice, flavoured or otherwise scented, is disgusting. It's not the one. Why would you want to put that in your coffee? Why would you want to make a candle that smells like rancid pumpkin? No, it's not for me. Anyway, the new Big Mama's Butter is called Ginger Zen, not pumpkin spice. But I wouldn't put it past them to bring one out just to torment me in a future years. I've only got a little one of Ginger Zen, and it does smell. It smells like a bit cinnamony, a bit spicy, a bit gingery. It's all right. It's quite nice. Nothing will ever beat Orange Grove for me. You love pumpkin anything? Get out. I like pumpkins. I love a pumpkin. The look of them. Flavour or scent? No. What do they... If you smell a real pumpkin, if you chop the top off a real pumpkin and sniff it, it smells horrible. The synthetic version of a pumpkin is even worse. They just add like cinnamon and stuff into it. But then I can't stand cinnamon. I can't stand anything like cinnamony or... No thanks. Anyway, we're going off topic here, but sticky drawers, Big Mama's Butter. It probably wasn't even a genuine question knowing you lot. You probably just... Oh, it was a genuine question from Donna. Okay. Yeah. Big Mama's Butter. It's so good. It's so, so good. It's got coconut oil in. It's got hemp seed oil in. It's got carnauba wax in. I can never say that. It's got really good stuff. So it nourishes wood, as well as obviously all those things that make things glide, sticky drawers being one of them. So anyway, ginger is my worst nightmare. I like ginger. I don't mind ginger. It's just pumpkin I've got a problem with. Well, how did we get on to vegetables? I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me, as always. Take care, and I will, like I said, see you next week. Bye.